The void between stars had been their home for 83 years. Now, as the massive colony ship Endurance decelerated into the Tau Ceti system, First Officer Elena Reyes stood on the observation deck, watching the view screens as they displayed the approaching planet. Their destination, Promised Land. Tau Ceti, humanity's best hope. Beautiful, isn't it? Captain Aaron Chun appeared beside her, his weathered face illuminated by the glow of the screens. It is, Elena agreed, studying the blue-green world growing steadily larger. Hard to believe we are finally here. Chun nodded, clasping his hands behind his back. 3 generations on this ship. Your grandparents never saw Earth, and now you will be one of the first to set foot on our new home. Elena felt a pang of something. Not quite nostalgia, since one couldn't be nostalgic for a place they'd never been, but a strange sense of disconnection. Earth was just stories to her, tales passed down from the first generation of colonists who had departed a dying planet. For her, Endurance was home, its metal corridors and recycled air the only reality she had ever known. Until now. We are receiving some unusual readings from the surface, said Lieutenant Kavita Sharma from her station at the sensor array. Her brow furrowed as she studied the instruments. Electromagnetic signatures consistent with technology. Elena and Chun exchanged glances. The preliminary probes sent decades ago had shown no signs of intelligent life. Could it be interference from our own systems? Chun asked, moving to Kavita's station. Negative, Captain. These signatures are definitely originating from the planet's surface. And they are organized, patterned. Elena felt her pulse quicken. Are you saying, Captain? Interrupted the communications officer, his voice tight with tension. We are receiving a transmission from the planet. A heavy silence fell over the bridge. Put it through, Chun ordered after a moment. The main view screen flickered, and then filled with the image of a being that was unmistakably not human. Its skin was a pale lavender, its features vaguely insectoid with large, compound eyes that glittered with an unsettling intelligence. When it spoke, its mandibles clicked and vibrated in complex patterns, while a translation matrix converted the sounds into English. Greetings, travelers. I am Ambassador Zrill of the Velir Collective. Your arrival has been anticipated. Welcome to New Velir. The ship's council chamber had never felt so small. Elena sat at the long table, surrounded by the ship's leadership. Captain Chun, Chief Engineer Marcus Wong, Medical Director Dr. Fatima Al-Zarani, and Agricultural Director Thomas Okafor. Across from them sat 3 representatives of the Velir. Ambassador Zrill, flanked by what appeared to be military and scientific advisors. Our people established this colony 27 of your Earth years ago, Zrill was explaining, his translated voice surprisingly melodious. We are approximately 15,000 individuals, spread across 3 settlement clusters in the northern continent. We were unaware of any other interstellar civilizations in this sector, Chun said carefully. Our probes detected no signs of intelligent life or technology. The Velir that had been introduced as Science Overseer Thrix made a sound that the translator rendered as a gentle laugh. Your probes passed through this system before our arrival. We intercepted one, in fact, which helped us learn your language and prepare for potential contact. Elena tried to keep her expression neutral, but inside, her mind was racing. The Endurance carried the hopes and dreams of humanity. 10,000 colonists in various states of cryostasis, ready to build a new life on this world that was supposed to be uninhabited. There were thousands more embryos in cold storage, the genetic diversity needed to establish a thriving human presence. They had nowhere else to go. Earth was no longer viable, its resources depleted, its climate transformed beyond habitability. And the Endurance lacked the fuel reserves for another interstellar journey. This presents us with a significant complication, Chun said, choosing his words carefully. Indeed, Zrill agreed. This planet, which you call Tau Ceti-E and which we have named New Velir, is rich in resources but not limitless. Our scientists estimate it could comfortably support perhaps 30,000 Velir at our current technological level and consumption patterns. Your own species appears to require similar resources. We have 10,000 colonists on board, Elena said, many still in cryostasis. Zrill's compound eyes seemed to glitter. A significant population to accommodate without preparation. We have nowhere else to go, Dr. Alzarani said softly. Our ship doesn't have the capacity for another interstellar journey. A tense silence fell over the room. I propose a joint team, Chen said finally. Your scientists, our scientists, working together to determine if coexistence is possible and under what terms. Zril's mandibles clicked rapidly, a gesture Elena couldn't interpret. A reasonable approach, Captain Chun. We are not opposed to sharing this world, provided certain conditions can be met. The Velir collective values harmony and cooperation, but we must also protect our own interests. The military advisor, introduced as Defense Coordinator Krell, leaned forward slightly. You should understand that while we prefer peaceful solutions, we are prepared to defend our colony if necessary. Elena felt a chill at the barely veiled threat. The Endurance had been designed as a colony ship, not a warship. It carried minimal defensive capabilities, enough to deflect small asteroids and space debris, but nothing that would qualify as weapons of war. If the Velir decided to prevent their landing by force, the humans would have little recourse. Defense Coordinator, she said, keeping her voice level, I assure you that war is the furthest thing from our minds. We are colonists, not conquerors. Krell's posture relaxed slightly. I am pleased to hear this. There have been other encounters that did not end peacefully. That revelation sent another ripple of tension through the human side of the table. We propose 3 days of joint scientific assessment, Ambassador Zril said, redirecting the conversation. Your specialists and ours will evaluate the planet's carrying capacity and identify potential territories for human settlement that would minimize disruption to our existing colonies. Captain Chen nodded. Agreed. We will assemble our team immediately. As the meeting concluded and the Velir representatives prepared to return to their shuttle, Ambassador Zril approached Elena. First Officer Reyes, I sense you have concerns that remain unspoken. Elena hesitated, then decided on honesty. Ambassador, what happens if your scientists determine that the planet cannot support both our peoples? Zril's compound eyes fixed on her face. Then, Officer Reyes, we will have difficult choices to make. Elena had never felt real gravity before. Her whole life had been spent in the artificial gravity of the Endurance, calibrated to Earth normal, but always with a subtle difference. A certain lightness that the engineers could never quite eliminate. Now, as she stepped onto the surface of Tau Ceti E, or New Velir, as she supposed she should learn to call it, she felt the planet pulling at her bones with a primal insistence. This is real, she thought. This is what we were promised. The landing party consisted of Elena, Dr. Alzarani, agricultural specialist Jessica Mbeki, geologist Dr. Hiroshi Tanaka, and environmental systems engineer Dr. Rafael Diaz. They had touched down near one of the smaller Velir settlements, where they were met by science overseer Thrix and a team of Velir specialists. The settlement itself was unlike anything Elena had imagined alien architecture might be. The Velir buildings were partially subterranean, with graceful, translucent domes rising from the ground like enormous soap bubbles, interconnected by covered walkways. The overall effect was organic, almost like a living organism spread across the landscape. Your structures are beautiful, she told Thrix as they walked toward what appeared to be a central facility. They are efficient, Thrix replied, though the translator conveyed a hint of pride. They utilize geothermal energy for temperature regulation and are designed to withstand the seasonal storm cycles. Inside the facility, the joint scientific team gathered around a holographic display of the planet. Elena watched as Dr. Tanaka and his Velir counterpart, a geologist named Vreen, discussed mineral deposits and geological formations, their shared scientific language transcending the barriers of biology and culture. The northern continent has extensive freshwater resources, Vreen was explaining, highlighting a network of rivers and lakes. Our settlements are concentrated here, here, and here. 3 points of light appeared on the map. What about this southern landmass? Dr. Diaz asked, pointing to a continent separated from the northern one by a narrow sea. Less optimal, Thrix said. More volcanic activity, higher average temperatures, and seasonal drought cycles. We established an experimental outpost there early in our colonization, but abandoned it after 2 cycles. Elena exchanged glances with Dr. Alzarani. The southern continent might represent their best chance for a separate human territory, minimizing direct competition with the Velir. We'd like to survey it, Elena said. Our species evolved in a relatively warm climate. What's suboptimal for your people might be suitable for ours. Thrix's compound eyes studied her for a moment. A logical approach. We can arrange transport to the southern continent tomorrow. As the scientific discussions continued, Elena found herself drawn to a window overlooking the settlement. Velir moved about their daily tasks below, some noticing the facility and pausing to look up at the human visitors. Children, at least, Elena assumed they were children, smaller versions of the adults with more vibrant coloring, played in what appeared to be a communal garden. They are just people, she murmured to herself. Different biology, different evolution, but just people trying to live their lives. A profound observation, came a voice behind her. Elena turned to find Ambassador Zril approaching, and one that gives me hope for our potential cooperation. Ambassador. Elena greeted him with a respectful nod. I'm sorry if I was being intrusive. Not at all. Curiosity is a trait our species share. Zril moved to stand beside her at the window. You know, First Officer Reyes, when we first detected your ship approaching, there was considerable debate among our leadership about how to respond. What kind of debate? Some advocated for concealment, shutting down our technology, hiding our presence until we could better assess your intentions. Others suggested immediate military preparation. Zril's mandibles clicked softly. I argued for the approach we ultimately took: open communication, transparency. I believe that any species capable of interstellar travel must have evolved beyond using violence as a first resort. I'd like to think you are right, Elena said. Though human history doesn't always support that optimism, nor does Velir history, Zril admitted. We have had our wars, our periods of conflict and cruelty. But space travel has a way of putting such things in perspective, doesn't it? When you have seen a world from orbit, borders seem so arbitrary. Elena nodded. On Earth, they said that the first astronauts experienced something called the overview effect, a cognitive shift in awareness from seeing the planet as a whole, without divisions. Yes, exactly this. Zril seemed pleased. Perhaps we are not so different after all, despite our biology. Elena was about to respond when Dr. Alzarani approached urgently. Elena, we have a problem. Back aboard the Endurance, Captain Chin listened grimly as Elena and Dr. Alzarani delivered their report. The atmospheric composition is slightly different than our probes indicated, Dr. Alzarani explained, displaying the data on the council room screen. Higher levels of argon and methane, plus trace elements we are still analyzing. Initial testing suggests these compounds may have subtle but cumulative negative effects on human physiology. Respiratory irritation, potential neurological impacts over long-term exposure. Can we adapt? Chen asked. Filter systems, supplements, possibly for adults, but for children, especially developing fetuses and infants. Dr. Alzarani's voice trailed off. The risks are significant. Elena picked up the thread. The Velir have made subtle biological adaptations to the atmosphere over their colonization period. Their medical technology is impressive. They have offered to share their research. Chun rubbed his temples. So our choices are what? Permanent life support systems? Generations of medical intervention? There's another possibility, Elena said hesitantly. The southern continent shows lower concentrations of these problematic compounds. The Velir abandoned their outposts there because the conditions weren't ideal for their biology, but might be more suitable for ours. We are scheduled to survey it tomorrow, and if it's not viable, neither Elena nor Dr. Alzarani answered immediately. I need to address the colonists, Chun said finally. The first group is scheduled to awaken from cryostasis tomorrow. They are expecting to step onto their new home, not to learn that it's already occupied and potentially toxic to our biology. Captain, Elena said carefully, it might be wise to delay the revival schedule until we have more data. Chen shook his head. The sequence has already begun for the first 100 colonists. Agricultural specialists, civil engineers, medical personnel, people we need for this assessment phase. We can delay the others, but this group will be awake by tomorrow. Elena nodded, understanding the implications. The revival process couldn't be halted once begun without risking the lives of those in cryostasis. By this time tomorrow, 100 human colonists would be awake, filled with hope and expectations for their new beginning. Expectations that might now be impossible to fulfill. There's something else, Dr. Alzarani said, her expression troubled. I have been reviewing the medical scan data from the Velir. Their biology is concerning in one specific aspect. They carry bacteria that could be highly pathogenic to humans. And likewise, our microbiome could be dangerous to them. A mutual biological threat, Chin said quietly. Exactly. Long-term coexistence would require strict protocols, possibly permanent separation of our living spaces, water systems, agricultural areas. Elena felt a weight settling onto her shoulders. The dream of a fresh start, of building a thriving human colony on this distant world, was growing more complicated by the hour. We need options, people, Chin said firmly. I'm not giving up on this planet yet. We have come too far. The southern continent was beautiful in a stark, dramatic way. From the Velir shuttle, Elena watched as jagged mountain ranges gave way to sweeping plains and deep, winding canyons. Lakes glittered like scattered jewels across the landscape, their surfaces rippling in the warm breeze. Initial atmospheric readings are promising, Dr. Diaz reported, studying his instruments. Lower concentrations of the problematic compounds, well within adaptive ranges for human physiology. What about soil composition? Jessica Mbeki asked. Can we grow food here? Preliminary analysis suggests yes, with some mineral supplementation, Dr. Tanaka replied. Not unlike the adjustments we would have made in our original landing zone. Elena felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps there was a way forward after all. The shuttle touched down near the abandoned Velir outpost, a smaller version of their northern settlements. Many of the dome structures were still intact, though the translucent materials had clouded with age and exposure. The outpost was operational for approximately 3 of your Earth years, Thrix explained as they disembarked. It was primarily a research station to study the unique ecosystem of this continent. Why did you abandon it? Elena asked. Multiple factors. The higher temperatures affected worker efficiency. Several species of native flora produce pollen that cause severe allergic reactions in our people. And the distance from our main settlements made supply logistics challenging. Dr. Alzarani was taking air samples, her expression growing more optimistic as she studied the readings. This could work, she said quietly to Elena. Humans evolved in warm climates. What's uncomfortable for the Velir might be perfectly suitable for us. As the scientific team spread out to conduct their survey, Elena walked with Ambassador Zril toward a ridge overlooking a broad valley. Below, a river wound its way through the landscape, bordered by vegetation that reminded Elena of the pictures she'd seen of Earth's savannas. This land is quite beautiful, she commented. Yes, Zril agreed, in a different way than our northern settlements. There is a wildness here that some of our people found disconcerting. Humans are adaptable, Elena said. Our ancestors thrived in environments ranging from Arctic tundra to tropical jungles. This, she gestured to the landscape, this we could work with. Zril was silent for a moment, his compound eyes taking in the vista. I sense you are proposing a solution, First Officer Reyes. A possibility Elena clarified. If this continent proves viable for human settlement, perhaps we could establish ourselves here, leaving the northern continent to the Velir. 2 separate civilizations, sharing a planet, but with minimal interference in each other's development. An interesting proposal, Zril said, though it would not eliminate all challenges. The potential biological hazards Dr. Alzarani identified would still require careful management. And there would be questions of resource allocation, shared governance of planetary matters. True, Elena acknowledged. But it might be a starting point. Better than conflict. Better than one of us having to leave. Zril made a gesture that the translator didn't interpret. Something cultural, perhaps, or too subtle for the algorithm to catch. I will present this idea to the collective leadership. It has merit. As they turned to rejoin the others, a distant rumbling sound drew their attention. The ground beneath them trembled slightly. Seismic activity? Elena asked, alarmed. Volcanic, Zril corrected, pointing to a distant mountain range where a plume of smoke was now visible. This continent has a more active geological profile than the northern landmass. Another reason we chose not to establish permanent settlements here. Elena watched the distant eruption with a mixture of awe and concern. One more variable to consider, one more challenge to overcome. But humans had lived with volcanoes before. They could do so again. If this becomes our home, she said, we will need to understand these cycles, build with them in mind. Your people are determined, Zril observed. This is admirable. We have to be, Elena replied simply. We have nowhere else to go. The first 100 colonists awakened from cryostasis with the expected mix of disorientation, excitement, and apprehension. Captain Chun had insisted on being present for their revival, standing in the cryobay as the massive preservation units cycled through their warming sequences and medical staff stood by to assist with the transition. Elena watched from the observation area as the colonists emerged, many of them looking around in wonder and confusion at their first conscious moments aboard the Endurance. Most have been placed in cryostasis on Earth before the ship's departure. For them, no subjective time had passed since saying goodbye to their home planet. They don't know yet, whispered Jessica Mbeki, who stood beside Elena. They still think everything is going according to plan. They will be briefed once they are medically cleared, Elena replied. Captain Chin will address them in the assembly hall. How do you tell someone who gave up everything for a fresh start that their new home is already taken? Elena had no answer for that point 2 hours later. She stood at Captain Chin's side as he faced the assembled colonists. They had been given time to shower, change into standard ship attire, and consume their first meal, but confusion and questions were evident on their faces. I know you have many questions, Chin began, his voice steady and reassuring. Your revival has occurred as scheduled, but there have been developments during our journey that you need to be aware of. A murmur ran through the crowd. When we left Earth 83 years ago, our probes had indicated that Tau CE was uninhabited and suitable for human colonization. However, upon our arrival, we discovered that another spacefaring species, the Velir, established a colony here 27 years ago. The murmur became a rumble of shock and disbelief. Additionally, Chen continued, raising his voice slightly. Our initial assessment indicates that the planet's atmosphere contains compounds that may be problematic for long-term human habitation, at least in the northern continent where the Velir have settled. A woman near the front stood up. Are you saying we can't land? After everything we have sacrificed to get here? No, Chen said firmly. I'm saying that our situation is more complex than anticipated, and we are actively working on solutions. We have identified the southern continent as potentially more suitable for human physiology, and initial surveys suggest it could support our colonial needs. And these, Velir, said a man with a geologist insignia on his uniform. Are they hostile? They have been cooperative and transparent, Elena interjected. They are facing the same unexpected situation we are, sharing a planet they thought would be solely their own. Their leadership has expressed willingness to explore coexistence scenarios. When can we see them? Asked another colonist, her expression a mix of fear and fascination. Are they? What do they look like? Captain Chin gestured to the large view screen at the front of the assembly hall. Ambassador Zril of the Velir Collective has prepared a message for you. I believe it may answer some of your questions. The screen activated, showing the now familiar lavender-skinned, insectoid features of Ambassador Zril against the backdrop of the Velir settlement. Greetings, human colonists, Zril began, his translated voice filling the hall. I understand this is a moment of significant adjustment for you. On behalf of the Velir Collective, I wish to welcome you to this star system we now share. Elena watched the colonists' reactions, the widened eyes, the gasps, the instinctive recoiling from some at the alien appearance. But she also noted those who leaned forward in fascination, their expressions open and curious. We propose a meeting between representatives of your recently awakened group and our settlement leaders, Zril continued. There is much to discuss regarding our potential shared future on this world. Captain Chun can provide details on the proposed exchange. After the message concluded, the assembly erupted in questions and exclamations. Chun raised his hands for quiet. I understand this is overwhelming, he said, but I need you all to remember why we came here. Earth was dying. Humanity needed a fresh start, a chance to build something better. That opportunity still exists. It just may look different than we anticipated. What if negotiation fails? Someone called out. What if they decide they don't want to share after all? A tense silence followed the question. We are not considering that outcome yet, Chun said carefully. But I assure you, the safety and future of every human aboard this ship remains my highest priority. As the assembly dispersed, colonists breaking into small groups of intense discussion, Elena approached Chun. They are scared, she said quietly, and they have every right to be. Chun nodded, his expression grim. Fear can make people dangerous, Elena. On both sides. We need to move quickly with these negotiations before fear hardens into something worse. The negotiations took place on neutral ground, plateau halfway between the main Velir settlement and a landing zone designated for the human colony ships. Prefabricated structures have been erected to create a diplomatic compound, with separate environmental controls for the human and Velir delegations to minimize cross-contamination risks. Elena sat at the negotiating table beside Captain Chun, along with Dr. Alzarani, Thomas Okafor, and two representatives from the newly awakened colonists, Dr. Sophia Novak, a constitutional law specialist, and Dr. James Harper, an expert in sustainable development. On the Velir side, Ambassador Zrill was joined by Defense Coordinator Krell, Science Overseer Thrix, and two other officials introduced as Resource Manager Vril and Social Harmony Director Plex. We have reviewed your proposal for settlement of the southern continent. Zrill began after the formal introductions. Our scientific assessment aligns with yours. The region appears more suitable for human physiology than for Velir biology. Our agricultural specialists believe we can establish self-sustaining food production within 2 growing cycles, Thomas Okafor added. The soil composition is workable with minimal amendments. Resource Manager Vril leaned forward. There remains the question of mineral rights. Initial surveys indicate significant deposits of rare elements in the southern mountain ranges, resources that may become crucial for both our civilizations as we develop. We are open to establishing shared access agreements, Dr. Harper responded. Perhaps designated extraction zones with joint oversight. And what of governance? Asked Social Harmony Director Plex, her translator conveying a melodious, almost musical quality to her speech. 2 distinct civilizations sharing a single world will require coordination on matters of planetary impact, atmospheric management, ocean use, global communication systems. Dr. Novak nodded. We envision a planetary council with equal representation from both species. Limited jurisdiction over shared resources and planetary scale concerns, with full autonomy for each civilization within their territories for all other matters. The discussions continued for hours, delving into complex details of resource allocation, communication protocols, scientific exchange, and mutual defense agreements. Elena found herself impressed by the pragmatism on both sides, the genuine effort to find workable solutions. But as the day wore on, she noticed Defense Coordinator Krell growing increasingly tense, his posture rigid, his contributions to the discussion minimal but pointed. During a brief recess, Elena approached Ambassador Zrill in the neutral airlock between the human and Velir sections of the compound. I sense some resistance from Defense Coordinator Krell, she said carefully. Is there a specific concern I should be aware of? Zrill's compound eyes studied her for a moment. You are perceptive, First Officer Reyes. Krell represents a faction within our collective that is cautious about your arrival. They fear that as your numbers grow, so too will your territorial ambitions. We have no desire for expansion beyond what we need to survive, Elena assured him. Perhaps not now, not this generation. But what of your children and their children? Your ship carries 10,000 colonists, plus genetic material for thousands more. In time, your population could dwarf ours. Elena considered this. Would it help if we established binding population limits as part of our agreement? Sustainable carrying capacity assessments for both territories. It might, Zrill acknowledged, though enforcing such limits across generations would present challenges for both our peoples. When negotiations resumed, Elena suggested the population management framework. To her surprise, it was Captain Chun who showed hesitation. We must be careful not to constrain the future too rigidly, he cautioned. Our descendants may develop technologies or practices that allow for greater population density without increased resource consumption. A valid point, Science Overseer Thrix conceded. Perhaps instead of absolute numbers, we focus on impact metrics, atmospheric effects, water usage, biodiversity preservation. The discussion shifted to environmental monitoring systems and shared data protocols. Progress was being made, compromises reached. Until the alarm sounded, Defense Coordinator Krell reacted instantly, touching a communication device on his forearm. His mandibles clicked rapidly as he received information, his posture shifting to what Elena interpreted as combat readiness. "What's happening?" Shin demanded. "Unauthorized landing," Krell replied tersely. "A shuttle from your ship has touched down near our primary settlement. Armed humans have deployed." Elena felt the blood drain from her face. "That's impossible. All shuttles are locked down during negotiations by mutual agreement." "The visual confirmation is unmistakable," Krell insisted, displaying a holographic image that showed a small craft of human design on the ground near the perimeter of the main Velir colony. Figures moved around it, carrying what appeared to be weapons. "Captain," the communications officer's voice came through Chin's wrist unit. "We have a situation. Shuttle 4 has been taken by a group of colonists. They have overridden the security protocols and launched without authorization." Chin's expression hardened. "Who?" "Colonists from the First Revival Group, led by Marcus Harding, security specialist." Elena remembered Harding from the assembly, a former military officer who had asked pointed questions about Velir defenses and human vulnerability. "This isn't authorized," Chun told the Velir delegation firmly. "These individuals are acting against direct orders." "Nevertheless," Defense Coordinator Krell said coldly, "your people have violated our territory with weapons. The defense protocols are clear." "Wait," Elena interjected. "Let me contact them. They will listen to ship's authority." Krell's posture suggested skepticism, but Ambassador Zrill raised a hand. "A reasonable request. But quickly, Officer Reyes. My military has already deployed response units." Elena activated her communication unit. "Shuttle 4, this is First Officer Reyes. You are in violation of direct orders and endangering the diplomatic process. Stand down immediately and prepare for retrieval." After a tense moment, a male voice responded. "Officer Reyes, this is Marcus Harding. We're done with diplomacy. These aliens want our world. We're not going to roll over and let them take it." "Harding, you are endangering every human on this mission," Elena said urgently. "The Velir have been cooperative. We are making progress on a sharing agreement." "Sharing?" Harding's voice dripped with contempt. "This planet was supposed to be ours. We didn't travel 80 years to play nice with bugs." Ambassador Zrill stiffened at the slur, compound eyes glittering with what Elena interpreted as anger or distress. "Harding, listen to me." Elena tried again. "The Velir Defense Forces are already responding. If you engage them, you will start a conflict we can't win. The Endurance has no military capabilities. We have 10,000 lives at stake." "Officer Reyes," Defense Coordinator Krell interrupted, his translator conveying urgency. "My units report your people are approaching a water purification facility. This is critical infrastructure." "Harding," Elena said, struggling to keep her voice steady. "Whatever you are planning, stop now. You're going to get people killed, humans and Velir." "Sometimes sacrifices are necessary," Harding replied. "Earth taught us that. The strong survive." His transmission cut off abruptly. "What's happening?" Shin demanded, looking at Krell. The defense coordinator was receiving information through his own communication system. "Our defense units have disabled their communications and surrounded the intruders. No casualties yet, but the situation is volatile." "Let me go there," Elena said suddenly. "In person. I can talk them down." "Too dangerous," Chin objected. "It's our best option, Captain. Harding and his group are acting out of fear and misplaced patriotism. They need to see that humans and Velir can work together, face to face." After a moment's hesitation, Chin nodded. "Ambassador Zrill, would your people allow this?" The ambassador's compound eyes fixed on Elena. "You would risk yourself to prevent conflict between our species." "Without hesitation," she replied. "Then I will accompany you," Zrill said. "A joint approach may be most effective." Defense Coordinator Krell began to object, but Zrill silenced him with a gesture. "Prepare a shuttle, Coordinator. First Officer Reyes and I will demonstrate that coexistence is possible, even in a crisis." The Velir shuttle moved swiftly across the landscape, its technology more advanced than anything the humans had brought from Earth. Elena sat beside Ambassador Zril in the forward compartment, watching the terrain blur beneath them. Your people have a saying, Zril commented as they approached the standoff location, that the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. A similar principle guides the Velir collective. Not everyone shares that philosophy, Elena replied grimly, thinking of Harding and his followers. No civilization is monolithic, Zril agreed. There are Velir who oppose my approach as well, who believe any sharing of this world is too great a risk. The shuttle began its descent near the water purification facility. Through the view screen, Elena could see the human shuttle surrounded by Velir defense units. Insectoid figures in what appeared to be lightweight armor, carrying devices she assumed were weapons. Between them stood the human intruders, Harding at their center, his posture defiant despite being outnumbered. They haven't harmed anyone yet, Zril noted, receiving information through his communication implant. Your Harding demanded to speak with Velir leadership and threatened to damage the water facility if refused. A desperate bluff, Elena said. He's trying to force concessions. The shuttle touched down, and Elena felt the strange pull of the planet's gravity once more as she stood. What's your security protocol here? Will they fire if we exit together? My personal signal will prevent that, Zril assured her. But we should move slowly and make our approach visible to both sides. As the shuttle's hatch opened, Elena took a deep breath of the filtered air in her suit. The environmental team had determined that brief exposure to the planet's atmosphere was safe for humans, but prolonged breathing without filtration could cause respiratory irritation and other symptoms. She stepped onto the planet's surface beside Ambassador Zril, their unlikely alliance immediately drawing the attention of both groups. Harding, she called out, her voice amplified by her suit's systems. Stand down. You are endangering the entire